governess is a woman, probably young, but not necessarily, could be middle-aged, who lives with a family and is responsible for the teaching of the girls. So that could be anywhere from a 5-year-old up to an 18-year-old. She may also educate boys up until about the age of 8, at which point they would go away to school. The governess could be teaching anything from very basic stuff like the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, right up to really quite complex subjects, French, Italian, piano playing, use of the globes, which we know is geography really, algebra. Governesses who taught older girls were responsible for training them up in what were called accomplishments. Now, these are the kinds of skills that girls were assumed to need once they entered the middle-class marriage market. So that might include things like speaking French, playing the piano, deportment, walking around with a book on your head so that you have a straight spine, dance even, that kind of basket of accomplishments and skills that make you ready to find a husband. But it wasn't just that governesses taught. They were also responsible for their charges' moral education. They often superintended children's prayers at night time. They heard them reading from the Bible. They were constantly inculcating sort of normal moral truths about not lying, not pinching your sibling, being grateful for everything, being kind to your parents. So it was a difficult kind of job. I mean, on the one hand, you're teaching girls in effect how to show off. On the other hand, you're also trying to teach them how to be good Christian women. It's a very, very complicated role, and it's no wonder that an awful lot of governesses found it an immense strain. The sort of person who was most likely to become a governess was a young woman from a middle-class home, that is an educated home, who for some reason just didn't have a source of income. Her father perhaps had failed as a businessman, or perhaps her brother had lost his job, perhaps her mother had died. There was some reason why she didn't have enough money and she needed to go out and make some. And how she did that without losing caste, without becoming shamefully working class, was to go and live with another family, was to go and hire herself out as a sort of surrogate mother in somebody else's household. You've got a newly affluent middle class. They want to ape the kind of ways of living of the aristocracy. And one way they can do that is by hiring a more or less genteel woman to raise their daughters. So employing a governess becomes a kind of mark of status. It's a kind of conspicuous consumption. It says, look, I can afford to employ a woman, a genteel young woman, to teach my children. The governess occupied an incredibly awkward situation in the middle-class home. I mean, she's not one of the family, but she's not a servant either. And as a result, she found herself really very, very much alone. The family was the family. They didn't want this extra person at the dinner table. It's always awkward when you've got people whom you don't know very well. In any case, she's their employed. They can't relax in front of her. But the servants, meanwhile, don't want to be her friend. She's stuck up as far as they're concerned. They have to serve her a separate meal often in the schoolroom. She makes extra work for them. That's extra work. That's more the kind of journeys up the stairs. That's more washing up. Therefore, really nobody likes her. And it's a terribly lonely situation. I think the phrase that really sums up the governess is betwixt and between. She's a woman who's employed to look after somebody else's children, but she doesn't have children herself. She's a genteel lady, but the family that employs her doesn't really think that she's smart enough to sit down to dinner with them. And the servants who wait on her think really that she's no better than them, and they really can't stand her stuck-up airs. She's supposed to dress appropriately, which means elegantly, but she doesn't actually have enough money, really, to get her boots repaired or to get her gloves cleaned. I mean, she's in the middle of a kind of lot of tensions, and living them out must have been an incredibly uncomfortable situation in which to be. What's absolutely extraordinary is how the Governess starts to pop up in novels of the period from 1840s and beyond. And if you think about Jane Eyre, she's a governess. Becky Sharp in Vanity Fair, she's also a governess. I think the point is that novels in the 19th century need as their central figure a young person who's going out to make their way in the world, and they need to have no parents looking after them, no kind friends watching that they don't go wrong. They also need not to have any money, of course, because they need to make their fortunes. And the answer really is she's going to have to be a governess. That is the only kind of 20-year-old girl who is going to have a story about going out into the world, who's going to be unprotected. Friendless is the word that the 19th century uses. A friendless girl who's going to have adventures. Who's going to be absolutely respectable. We can't have a shop girl going out into the world. That won't make sense. We can't have a prostitute going out into the world. That really won't make sense to a middle-class readership. So we have to have the Governess. She's a fantastic figure for novelists.